All right, fellas, what is up? So grateful you guys are all here. We got a packed house today, whatever time it is that we're doing this. We're all staying at home. So I seriously forgot what month we were in yesterday when someone asked me. I was like, wait, are we in May yet? I can't remember. We're all in this together, that's for sure. But thank you for joining me for the Create Your Vision, Design Your Life, How to Craft a Vision, Set Goals, and Execute on Your Plan to Achieve Your Wildest Dreams webinar. I'm Johnny King. I'll get in a little bit more of my story. If you guys don't know me, I appreciate you guys popping on, spending your time here with me today and with all of us. And like I said before, some of you guys logged on, make sure you have some water, make sure you have a pen and paper, something to take some notes down on, and we will rock and roll. All right. Why are you here? You may be unhappy, unproductive, feeling like you're procrastinating, or maybe you want a higher purpose, but just not finding it. Maybe you're lost, right? Especially during all the COVID stuff, stay at home right now, there's a lot of unhealthy habits that are coming up. And so it's very easy to fall into a funk to where you feel like days are just passing you by, right? And I think the biggest challenge, I think, for all of us, if you're in that funk, is to feel like, you're not tapping into your full potential. So who's this for? It's for growth-minded guys looking for the edge, looking for like the next level, right? It's also for guys that maybe feel like you're in choice fatigue, like you've got too many irons in the fire, which is certainly a first world problem. But I certainly feel like I've been in that area plenty of times throughout my life. And being able to use that masculine energy to focus, put your blinders on, focus on what's the most important task can be really challenging. So finding that sense of self-discipline and finding some structure throughout your day, I would say, is one of my gifts. I've always been very, very structured, and all my siblings, my 4 siblings, were like, "Where do you get this from, Johnny?" I'm like, I don't know. The man upstairs. So maybe you're driven for something greater than yourself. I think we all are in many different ways. And so how this can serve you is that it's going to give you the tools to create a powerful vision and the blueprint to design your life. Because it's not only about how do we go through our days being productive, but as I'll say later, like, how are you going to design and plan out your day if you don't have a design for your life, right? So all of this is so that you can wake up each morning with a laser-like clarity for what needs to get done, the reasons for why you're doing it, and then the actual fulfillment that you are living into your fullest potential. All right. So as I was saying before, if you have questions as I get through this, because I'm going to start going pretty quick, throw them into the chat box. I'll go back and hit them up at the end. But where we are right now, I just took the screenshot yesterday of a New York Times article that I've been watching kind of on a day-to-day basis, just kind of see, it kind of looks like our country has a rash, right? And I think in many ways it does. You can obviously see what's going on in the Northeast. It's pretty crazy. All things relatively, we're not too bad here in Colorado. If you're watching from Colorado, for those of you that are elsewhere in parts of the country, we're all going through very similar things right now. And that is that, as these various articles pinpoint, the helpline jumped 891%, and it's warned of mental health crisis, right? Half of Americans are suffering a mental health issue during coronavirus. We're excessively eating, drinking, smoking pot, playing video games, watching porn while being quarantined, right? A lot of those unhealthy habits, like I mentioned, are on the rise. So truth be told, man, you're being tested. You know it, I know it. And it's very, very tempting to just buy into the story that we're just going to put our dreams and our ambitions on hold until life gets back to normal, right? You've probably heard that. I've heard other people say that. But it's really easy to spin into fear, to sit on your hands, and to kind of take that victim role while just kind of receiving the cards that are being dealt, right? So it's really easy to feel right now that we're being squeezed emotionally, financially, relationally. And as those articles said there on the previous slide, like, man, our biggest war right now is the war that's being waged within, I think, especially as men. So I've been tested in a major way, certainly in the last recession. And it took like in an extreme situation of the recession, and it made it even worse because in 2006, my mom passed away from cancer. Then I got married, which was not a bad thing. And then the recession hit like right before I got married, right? I bought my first home in January of 2007. And then it took me like 8 years to get out from underwater of that thing. Brutal. But then my dad actually came out. It was a big, like, what? You know, in 2008, 2009, my dad came out of the closet. My mom knew about it. They knew about it. It was like such an elephant in the room. Like, that's a whole nother webinar, whole nother story. But that started to really work on healing my relationship with my dad. And then shortly thereafter, the ex-wife asked for a divorce. So as you can imagine, at the same weekend that I decided to quit my job because I was so unhappy and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I couldn't keep doing what I was doing. And I was just going to start off on my entrepreneur, journey, was the same weekend that she said that she was out. So as you can imagine, very quickly, I found myself without a job, with ultimately like half my furniture, no cash, because that's what happens through a divorce. And then I was having nightmares every night, man. I was either having a nightmare of that she was gone, only to wake up to the fact that that nightmare was actually the reality, or I was having the nightmare that she had stayed, only to wake up to my actual nightmare. So I couldn't sleep. It was like 3 months of just absolute brutalness. And I had this wall where we had maybe 30 pictures of our life, all of our memories together, right? She'd taken all of them except the wedding photos. And so after she had moved out, because I wasn't there, I couldn't handle, I was so codependent, so enmeshed, like my life was ending, she was the pinnacle of my mountain. And I learned that the hard way, that's not a healthy thing at all. But I came back into the apartment after she had left, and I looked to the wall where we had all of our photos that used to be, and they were all pretty much empty nails except for our wedding photos. And I lost it. I broke down because I was like, that's just a great symbol of where my life was. Like everything that I thought I had and that I needed was gone, right? So I quickly found myself in about $35,000 worth of credit card debt because I was just living off of that for about a year. And each time my credit card statement showed up, it ruined me for like 2 or 3 days. Like just the burden of seeing that number going and not having any plan. I didn't know what I was doing, right? So I knew I wasn't even remotely close to tapping into my full potential. And it was around that time that I had hired my very first coach, and he was supporting me in creating my very first info product, which I sold one of for, what was it, like $19. So clearly that wasn't going to be paying the bills. So my go-to people, which were essentially, I was a mama's boy because my dad was a workaholic. All growing up, I had no male role models. My mom, it was my ex-wife before she left, my ex-mother-in-law, like all the women that I found my validity through were all gone. It's just me and my faith, right? So what I realized up to that point was that I was all science and no art. And what I mean by that is, this is very interesting. If you've never heard of this, I see it as like two sides of the same coin. There's the science of achievement and there's the art of fulfillment. The science of achievement is what guys often are really good at: producing results, making money, again, putting your blinders on, like seeing that there's something that needs to be solved and you're just moving towards it, right? It's all about acquisition of things and all that stuff, right? But it's a science, because think about it just in terms of your health. You could go on to Google and search how to lose weight, and it'll literally give you an equation, right? Eat less calories than you burn equals weight loss. It can be proven, right? Now, success a lot of times can be proven. It's just like hard work over a certain amount of years and having a clear vision of what you're going towards, right? But where I found myself was that I had no art of fulfillment. And what I mean by that is, what makes me happy is totally different than what makes Corey happy or Ty happy or Robert happy. All of us as men have different things that make us happy, just in the same way that we have different interests in our significant others, right? We all have our particular tastes. So some of us want to retire on a beach one day. Another of us wants to retire up in the mountains. Some of us want to get a boat and travel around the world, like, right? So what makes us all fulfilled is totally different. And that's why it's an art, because it's not a provable science. And the challenge is it's a lot more difficult to figure out ultimately. And a lot of times we are so dead set on like, well, when I achieve this, then I'll be happy. And we all know, man, or if you don't, you will quickly find out that that's just not the case. So what I did was I just threw myself into personal growth. The ex-wife gave me our second year anniversary gift, a ticket to see Tony Robbins. And that started to change my trajectory of my life, man. I realized that he had hacked the fulfillment side of life. And so I went all in on that. That was a big way of kind of how I started getting into so much credit card debt, but I just started seeing that like I could no longer remain being the guy that I was. I had to level up. Otherwise, I'll get into another marriage probably and probably ruin that one. And I'm not going to be successful. I'm not going to be happy. And what's the point of this life if I'm not going to actually improve who I am as a man? Because I ultimately want to show up and end my years, my days on this planet being proud of who I am as a man. And I feel like if you're here watching this, you're taking the time out of your day to level up, right? Because it's not just about like productivity, right? It's also about being freaking fulfilled at the end of it, right? So I hired coaches, all types of coaches, just let's say lots of coaches, right? Over the last, and I have one now. I constantly have a coach is the way to, but I started creating a life that I had always like, oh, by this time next year, I want to live in Denver. Oh, by this time, next year, I just kept on saying, oh, by this time next year, I'm going to do these things. And I just never did. And so here's a great example. I just started to apply myself. I started traveling the world, doing personal development, but also volunteering in Thailand with elephants. I was in Dubai. I was fishing piranhas in the Amazon. I went to Guatemala, just doing tons of cool things, just starting to create memories and just pouring into myself, because I read a book, The Millionaire Next Door, but also Stop Acting Rich by Joseph Stanley. And in it both, he says like the difference between the rich and the wealthy is the rich spend their money on doodads, on things, right? The wealthy spend their money on education and experiences. So I was like, all right, I'm in. I got to educate myself and I'm going to travel the world and live my life. So I discovered through all of it is that I really lacked a clear vision, and why I was just a bump on a log, especially through my marriage and coming home passionless, was that I didn't have a clear vision of where I was going. I didn't have defined outcomes. I needed a greater purpose, which I knew, but I didn't even know how to go about the process of discovering that within myself, right? So I was not committed whatsoever to really anything in my life. Like, I mean, I was committed to, let's say, my relationship, but I wasn't showing up and giving my all, right? I was using work and the gym and my MBA and fixing the house, rehabbing the house, all as like excuses to do things because I knew I was failing in my marriage, right? So high achievers, though, I started noticing as I was researching and reading and delving into things, and you probably maybe have noticed the same, they practice success habits and rituals. You can look it up on YouTube. There's always like morning ritual stuff. And this is how I, start my day. And I'm like, okay. And as I said earlier, how can you even begin to plan your day if you don't have a plan for your life, right? So I needed an execution focused system. And I'm going to get to that here shortly. But what resulted from that discovery was that I needed to create a life that I could fall in love with, which is a big reason why I moved from St. Louis to here and sold off the gyms that I had started, because I was just, even with several gyms, and that business had grown from 2010 to 2015, like I was so burnt out, man, so unfulfilled, and enough was enough. I was like, I have to go. So I moved out here, sold off the gyms, and really started focusing on creating that life that I could fall in love with, and a life of my choosing, And so I realized I really needed to have highly intentional daily habits and rituals. And so even if there were small little incremental things, 1% improvement every single day makes a heck of a lot of progress over the course of the year, right? And so I needed to be extremely purpose driven, because I knew that just chasing the white rabbit of success via making more money wasn't enough for me. I needed something that was driving me from my core personally, right? That's part of my art of fulfillment, that I needed to be pouring into something greater than myself. Otherwise I was going to burn out. And so that's a big reason why I started my meeting of men, where I'm supporting guys, creating this community where we're all in this together, because we isolate really, really well. And a lot of times the biggest things that come out of these meetings every single month is the guys realize, I'm not alone. I thought I was the only one feeling these things. And here there's a huge room of guys that are feeling very similarly. So that's been a huge part of my enjoyment too, is like, I only had like one good buddy or two in town, one or two wingmen, like that's it. And over this course of this last year and a half, just creating what I felt like I really needed, which was brotherhood. I have so many good friends. A lot of them, you guys are on right now, but I'm just very fulfilled in that sense. And so what was interesting is sitting down, doing probably over 100, maybe 150 coffee bro dates over the last year. I started to see that there's very, very clear patterns of success and very, very clear patterns of failure. And those guys that were really struggling, a lot of them couldn't even put their finger on what it is that was missing. Okay. What they said was that I just know that what I'm doing isn't working. So something's got to change. I'm like, I know all about that, because that's where I was when I was feeling the way that I was feeling, especially in my marriage. So I'd love to check in though real quick and see if thank you, Bradley, if anyone else can relate to that. Type into the chat box if any of you feel like I don't know exactly where to go, but I do know at least where I've been going certainly has not been working or resonating. Throw that in the chat box. I'd love to hear it. Because take, for instance, this avatar of Matt. This is something I hear a lot. Like on paper, he feels like he has so much to be grateful for. He's got a good job, a great income, but he has a deep knowing that he's not tapping into his full potential. He has no real passion for his work, for his relationship, for his life, for time with his kids, So David, on the other hand, he uses his phone and sits in bed for hours because he doesn't want to take on tomorrow because it's so boring. It's like living Groundhog's Day. So he's just prolonging the night, and then he wakes up exhausted. And he's addicted to like picking fights on Facebook, feeling significant by talking about politics or COVID, things like that. But he has no quality of life because he's not even taking care of his rudimentary needs of just getting some serious sleep. And then when he even does try, he can't turn off his brain because he's got all these things going on that he fills his mind with on his phone, right? Jeffrey, on the other hand, he snoozes constantly. He has no excitement for getting up in the day. He has no clear path. So he thinks, why even get up, right? So he wakes up exhausted because he eats super late at night. So his body, while he's sleeping, is just constantly digesting, and rather than kind of rejuvenating, right? And then he has to use caffeine to prop himself up. And so by the mid-afternoon, he's fallen asleep, and in meetings and things like that. And then all his day is just reactionary. Emails, phone calls, text messages, whatever the case might be for his work. He's just literally like, what's next? He has no clear direction in life. He's constantly just reacting to all the distractions, So the question for you is, if any of this resonates, you have to ask yourself, what is it costing you? And I often think about my life with this kind of framework of the foundational four that I'll kind of refer to later, which is fitness, like your physical fitness, as well as your mental fitness, emotional fitness, your family and friends, aka your relationships, your finances, your work, your business, what are you contributing to? And then your faith, your spirituality, your mindfulness, taking time for you. I was struggling in all those areas, but I'm wondering about for you, are you living a life that's a warning for others of what not to do? Or are you an example? Because I'm here today because I failed so miserably. I'm like, God damn it. Like, I'm going to help other guys avoid the crap that I went through, because once I started picking up books, I'm like, oh my God, the answers are right here. I didn't even know that the tools were available, if that makes sense. So if you feel like you're shaming yourself already or guilting yourself because you haven't started, it's okay. Um, maybe you're thinking like, well, I should be much further compared to my friends or compared to where I thought I should be by 35, 45, 55, wherever you are, we have to let those expectations go. Okay. If you feel like it's too late to even start, that's BS. If you don't know the story about Colonel Sanders, the guy that started KFC chicken, he came, roughly, he came up with the chicken and he made all of his fortune from 75 years old and older. Okay. So it's never too late to start. And in fact, it's the best time to start because right now with the COVID-19, we have fewer distractions. You have the time to actually be a lot more focused when we implement the self-discipline, right? And when you really look at what makes us happy, a lot of times it's just progress. If it's just that 1% progress every single day, that's what it's all about. And so the market is actually perfect because whenever there's times of mass hysteria, there's also times of massive growth, right? We see that actually in the stock market, but in so many other areas. So if you look at like the recession I was talking about of 2007 through 2010, what are some of the biggest companies that came out of that? It was like Venmo, WhatsApp, Uber, what else? Lyft, obviously. Some huge companies came out of that recession, and there's going to be something that comes out of this, no doubt. So if you can, just take time right now to only focus on you. Turn off your distractions. If you're already finding yourself kind of like listening to me, but you're surfing either on your phone or on your browser, quit that shit out, man. Because how you do anything is how you do everything. And if you don't have the discipline to stay focused right here, then you're not going to have to stay focused with your significant other or with your kids or with that project, right? This is the time for you, okay? We're gonna really get to the good stuff right now, okay? The good news is that I've already done all the work, and my desire is to help you shortcut the process to a life of massive achievement and fulfillment. We got to have both because we're not going to just be a starving artist where we're really happy because we're passionate about what we're doing, but we're not monetizing it and we can't even keep food on the table for ourselves or our loved ones, right? So here it is. We're going to create your vision, design your life. The very first pillar is that we have to create a powerful vision, okay? Pillar 2 is that you have to set inspiring outcomes and not goals. And then pillar 3 is to dial in your clear action plan. And pillar 4 is to execute with simplicity, because I truly believe that the enemy of execution is complexity. Okay. So let's jump into, first and foremost, creating a powerful vision. This is a very simplistic example of the power of vision. Okay. So I want you to do me a favor. I want you to close your eyes. Okay. Close your eyes. Trust me on this one. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. And I want you to focus on, in your thought, get a very clear vision of what you feel like a 70-year-old man looks like. Okay. What does he look like? What is his body? How does his body work? How does he breathe? How does he show up? How does he stand? What are the things that he does? Okay. What are his habits? What does a 70-year-old man look like? All right. Now I want you to open your eyes. And I have a question for you. Is this generally, roughly what you envisioned of a 70-year-old man? Because I will tell you, now this is one area of my life that I have been very clear, and maybe it's because I grew up with an obese mother and father and watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and Rocky Balboa and superheroes. I had a very clear idea of what I was going to look like and how my health was going to be all my life. And this was more of my vision of how I will be when I'm 70. Okay. Now this is the same guy, right? And he's all over the internet. But still, it's just cool to see what is possible. Okay. The interesting thing is that your brain doesn't know the difference between something we vividly imagine and something we actually experience, right? So you've got these two guys here, and you can choose either one. And truthfully, the only difference is one of these guys probably end up getting a vision of what he wanted, and he massively raised his standards. Because if you're not happy with how you're showing up in life, chances are you've lowered your standards in a major way, okay? So as it says here, I love this quote, dream no small dreams, for they have no power to move the hearts of men. So you've got to dream big, right? You got to dream big and put it out there, okay? So I want to hear from you guys real quick. What is some of the most common distractions that keep you from focusing on your powerful vision? Call it powerful vision, or just say, just your attention. Like what robs you of your time? What are some of the most common distractions that you fall victim to? Shiny object syndrome, Ty, yeah. Scotty, comfort, social media, work, social media, everyday life, Omari, yeah. Lack of sleep, Russ, cool. Negative people, for sure, Musaf, thank you guys. Yeah, absolutely. For me, it's certainly social media. I stress out about money sometimes, scarcity in my life, fear, jealousy, ego. Yep. Wesley, you said too much focus on disappointment. Sean, sex, drugs, house music. For sure, man. A lot of those things can be very, very elusive because they make us feel good in the moment, right? I'm not just talking about sex and drugs, but sex is definitely one for me too. It's like it feels good in the moment, of course, but then there's a lot of times that emptiness behind it, right? Even with the social media. So thank you guys, children. Robert, I hear you, brother. And so the very first thing that really robs us of our time a lot of times is anything that you think will lead to immediate pain. For instance, yesterday I was in physical therapy. I was getting dry needled. If you've never dry needled, it's like a love-hate relationship. I love how I feel afterwards, but hate the moment because more or less they're sticking a long freaking needle into your muscle to the point where your muscle freaks out and contracts, and then it completely lets go. So it's a way to, again, shortcut rather than doing a long massage, it'll just get a muscle to completely relax. And she was just nailing it. So many different things on my calf the other day. And dude, I wanted to, like, I was fighting all resistance to just not like kick her in the stomach and run away, right? That's physical pain. But a lot of times we have emotional pain that gets in our way too, right? So we'll do anything to avoid pain. Distraction number 2 oftentimes will be anything that we think will lead to immediate pleasure. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, social media, right? All those things. And then number 3 is a lot of times other people's demands, which I lived in that world, especially when I was in corporate America for years, where, again, it was emails, phone calls, you got a minute meetings, like, hey, you got a minute? Like, sure. And then like 2 hours later, I'm like, God, where did my day go? And then I'm stressed out because I'm not getting anything done, things like that. So what happens if you fall victim to any of those distractions and you find yourself in a downward cycle of feeling lost? Well, this is the success and kind of the atrophy cycle. Maybe you guys have seen this, but I'll go through it really quick. The whole thought is, like, if you think about like what are human beings capable of? And a lot of us are like, oh God, we're capable of so much. We put a man on the moon. There's currently a Tesla flying through outer space right now, right? We're able to, I mean, just what we've done in the last 100 years and where we've been able to travel the world so effortlessly, what we're doing right now, right? We take for granted. But when you actually think about your own potential, sometimes we think much less of our own potential, right? So we take someone like that gentleman, maybe he's 70 years old. He doesn't think he has all that much potential with losing weight. So he takes kind of like half-ass, action, which gives him half-ass results or no results, which only support a belief that, you know what, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. He's beyond his prime. He's never going to lose this weight, or take it like you're never going to get this job. You're not going to ever land that ideal partner. You're never going to make the money that you think. And so with this is a downward cycle. And with that, you think you have even less potential. You take less action, less results, less belief. But it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but it also works the other way, where you could start to take a little bit more action. You get a little bit more results, which kind of boosts up your ego and your sense of confidence. And so you feel like maybe you have actually even more potential, and you get into this routine, right? This kind of chugging away at making some good progress. And so if you've ever felt like we've had moments when we are in a really good mode, right? And then we fall off the wagon, and then we fall into really a bad, area of life, right? Let me hear if you've ever felt like you were going in that downward cycle, right? When you're really feeling like you have more potential, but you're not tapping into it at all. Thank you, Robert, Lindell, Aaron, Wesley, Rick, Bradley. Thank you guys. Absolutely. No doubt I've been there, and I go through phases, and I think we all do. It's just going to be natural that it's like we're going to be on and off, on and off. But the key is to limit how many times you fall off and how quickly you can get back in the saddle, right? So how do you get out of a downward cycle and get different results? Is if you look at this, you know, the idea is like we know the potential of man is kind of limitless. Look at the Olympics. Every single year, they're breaking records. Every single year, our potential as human beings is limitless in many different ways, right? But your action won't be quality if you don't believe it'll work, right? If you don't believe that you're going to lose weight, if you don't believe you're going to get that job, if you don't believe that you're going to land that ideal, you know, relationship, then you're not going to put forth the effort, right? So how do you actually change your beliefs? You change your beliefs by getting results in advance, AKA creating a compelling vision. Okay, this is why it's so important, why I went into all this, because purpose is when you know and understand what you were born to accomplish, whereas vision is when you see it in your mind and you actually begin to imagine it and you begin to actually live it and pursue it. Okay, so the very first pillar of creating your powerful vision, I have a process that I go through, okay? And the very first process starts kind of, you could do it at the beginning of the year. You can do it at the beginning of the month. If you haven't done this, I'd say you do this tonight, okay? But this is the process that I have created for myself because I needed, like I said, that focus process. That focus process is going to get me results, okay? So this is something that I do, and I will look back on it every single month. It's a monthly process, okay? So as it says, I'm not going to teach this whole thing because this is more of a longer process, but ultimately I will go through and I will use the foundational four of fitness, family, friends, finances, and faith, and I write out my vision for each. I have a vision for each of those, okay? And as this says down here, you want to pretend like you found a magic lamp and you have unlimited, you have more than 3 wishes. You have unlimited wishes. Like what, if you could let go of all of your preconceived human limitations, what would you love to have as your vision for your fitness, your family, friends, your finances, your faith, for the foundational 4? So the subsequent pages that I have of this document gets into fitness, right? What's your ultimate vision for your health? What do you ultimately want to experience having achieved your ideal health? Like what would your body be like if you were at your best, no matter what your age? Well, what would you want? How would you look in the mirror? How would you show up? How would you communicate to other people, right? How confident would allow you to feel, okay? And then secondarily, you got to be very, very clear about what is your purpose of that vision, right? Why is it important for you to achieve the vision of what you'll achieve by getting this, right? You have to figure out why, because the why, you know, the vision is almost like the sail, right? And the why and the purpose is the wind pushing it. If you don't have a why, as you well know, you're not going to get anywhere in life. And yet we all intuitively know these things, and yet we take very little time or no time to sit down and actually like craft out our vision. But it makes all the difference. It certainly does. So step 3 would be, who do you desire to be, right? What type of man is actually going to show up to make this vision possible? Because who you've been has been great for getting you to who you are right now. But he's not going to support you in getting you to where you want to be. And I knew that when I hit 30 years old and my life kind of crumbled, like I was saying before, I was like, I cannot go back to doing what I was doing before unless I want to just accept mediocrity in my life. And I hit that emotional threshold. I was over it. So step 4 is to really look at your resources. Like, what do you have at your disposal, right? We are all so much more, we have more resources than probably anyone else in the entire world, given that we actually live in the United States, okay? But we forget it a lot of times because we are looking at social media and we're looking at everyone else that's doing better than us, and it makes us depressed, right? So I'll cover the two other steps here in a second, but I said, you know, I have questions, specific questions for your fitness, specific questions for my finances, questions for my relationships, specific questions for my faith and my spirituality, my meditation practice, all of those things. And so it's extremely difficult to manage something that you don't measure, right? And if you only set goals or, you know, kind of set your destination with your waypoint at the beginning of every single year, what's the probability of you actually hitting the target? Very, very little, right? That's why I check in on it at least monthly, if not weekly, during my hour of power, as I call it, on Sunday nights when I kind of design out my week. So pillar number 2 is setting inspiring goals, not outcomes. And why I say that, outcomes versus goals, is because I'd love to hear if you personally have ever set a goal that you have not achieved. Okay, type a yes into the chat box if you've ever set a goal and have never achieved it. Let me see it. Yes. You guys are all pumping them in. Thank you all the time. Thanks, Rick. Yes, awesome. Okay, so a resounding yes. It's kind of almost a rhetorical question, correct? But why is that important? Is because you've achieved some goals, right, in your life, and we're all probably living a standard of life that at one point, the things that we are now experiencing that we take for granted were once dreams, correct? I certainly have, like, this, where I live right now was a dream at one point. However, it's very easy to take it for granted. But then I have plenty of other goals that I've set and I have not achieved them. Because goals, though, don't produce absolute certainty. Because when we set goals, because of the fact that we haven't always achieved them, there's a part of us, like there's part of you on this shoulder that speaks into your head, like, you got this, man, you're going to do this. 2020 is going to be the year. And then you got this other side of you like, yeah, good luck with that. You're lying to yourself, right? Am I right? So the reality is that you always achieve an outcome, right? Win or lose, you always achieve an outcome. It's absolute guaranteed. There's absolute certainty that you always have an outcome. So that's why it's extremely important that you choose the preferred outcome, okay? And that could be, like, I will set outcomes like, I want to vastly improve my physical health this year, okay? And then I will set goals that are in alignment. Okay, that's the umbrella, is the outcome. Then I will actually set goals that I may or may not achieve, or goals that I'll have to change throughout the year, that maybe, like, hey, I need to eat a certain amount of calories. I need to work out a certain way. I want to get to a certain amount of, I want to get into the single digits of body mass, lean body mass. I want to be super ripped. I don't know, whatever, right? You might not achieve all those things, but you might achieve some of them. And because you've achieved some of them, that'll still keep you motivated towards achieving your outcome. Does that make sense? Rather than, oh, I only achieved 2 of my 5 my goals, and then you beat yourself up, over New Year's, and then you don't even feel like you have that much potential. Thus, you don't take any more action in 2021, and your life just goes down the shitter, right? So, like I said, going back to this this kind of monthly create your vision, design your life process that I have, step 5 will then be setting your 1-year goals. And the important way of doing this, if you're taking notes, you want to set your goals as if they've already happened, okay? It kind of walks you through all this. But it's so much better to actually vision, at least for me, this is the way that I do it. I envision my goals as if I've already done them. And I've envisioned them, as if, thank you, Daniel, as if I've already accomplished them, and I feel the sense of gratitude in me. And so, like I said, if I really want to start a podcast, write a book, lose 30 pounds, I will say, I'm so grateful for the massive success of my podcast this year. My book launch was more than I could even imagine, and the people and the ways that I've been able to change the world have been amazing. Not to mention I lost 30 pounds and actually can see my abs now. Whatever the case, if you say it that way, it evokes so much more emotion, because the emotion, again, is what's going to actually push you forward, right? We always think that we want to achieve getting a car, a raise, a new house, but it's actually the feeling that thing will give us that we ultimately want. So that's why you want to connect with the sense of gratitude and appreciation that comes from achieving it. So you write those as if they've already happened. And then step 9, throughout this whole process, it'll help you boil down your 1-year goals into a 90-day outcome, which is important because when we get into the 3rd step here of dialing in your clear action plan, because my outcomes will stay the same, but like I said, my goals will change throughout the year. And so that's why a lot of times it's hard for me to even know 60 days ago, all of us were living a completely different life, right? So life changes so quickly. For me, I just like setting very, very clear 90-day outcomes, milestones. So we're going to get into that right here, which is the clear action plan. And so the very first thing that you have to do to create lasting change in your life is you have to become extremely aware of where you are right now, okay? You've got to stop freaking lying to yourself, because a lot of times we're not totally honest with where we are. We either make it out to be better than it is sometimes, and we're lying to ourselves, and we're making kind of like excuses, like, oh, I've got a lot of things in the pipeline, a lot of business is coming my way, right? But then also sometimes we have a really way of hating on ourselves and beating ourselves up to where it's way worse than it really actually is. So the wheel of life, I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's a really, really good way of kind of taking a quick snapshot of where you are in life. And it's sometimes good to get some feedback, you know, from buddies or from a spouse or from other people to see what's their experience of your life, right? Because sometimes we're doing better than we actually give ourselves credit for. So the 3 keys to kind of getting what you want in life is, first, to see it as it is and not worse than it is, because we're actually good about beating ourselves up, and it's never good enough, right? So no matter how productive you are, whatever results you get, we often keep looking at the glass as being half empty, which reminds me, take a little drink. You have to envision it better than it is, right? Like we said, we have to visualize it, and then you have to create a plan to make it the way that you envision it, okay? So to create more time, you have to become aware of what's actually stealing your time. So in my document here that I use every single week, here at the top is this little graph. Some of you guys may have seen this, pretty straightforward. I've broken it down into, it's 4 quadrants, but Q1 through Q4. Q1 is the urgent and important things, okay? It's the area of demand, okay? It's like the deadlines, it's exams, it's real crises, last minute preparations. Those are things that you have to do right now, okay? The Q2 is really the important and not urgent things. It's the planning, the problem prevention, it's the self-development, it's the kind of like the bigger vision things, okay? Those are things that you really need to schedule into your time. That Q1 is the area of demand. Like sometimes high achievers will live there all the time. High stress, but it makes them feel very, very significant because, man, they're crushing out stuff, but they're constantly, like, it's just coming at them at all. But it's very high stress, like I said. It's coming at you in all different directions. Q2, though, places where you actually be able to get to breathe, take some time to figure out what direction you're going in. And that's where I call it the zone. That's when I'm like, if I can turn off everything, which is what I do, and I'm able to focus in on this stuff, and how I created this whole webinar, man, I was in the zone. I was just crushing out work, right? Q3 is the urgent and not important. That's the area of delusion, okay? Those are some emails, calls, text messages, things that just kind of chime, and you're like, wait, what's that? You know, the you got a minute meetings. Like a lot of times you can see if people can do these things for you or just to delegate. It's not important for you to do, right? But it seems like it is because it's urgent, but it's really not. And then Q4 is not urgent and not important. That's the area of distraction, Facebook, social media, all those things that take your time, Netflix. It's okay to schedule in those things. Granted, like I watch Netflix like the rest of us, right? But you have to make sure that you keep it on lockdown so that it doesn't get out of control, right? So the area of demand, like I said, is totally cool. We're going to have these things. This is just where life shows up for sure, where you really want to spend as much of your time as the area of the zone, if you will. But then you also have to really look at what are those things that you could have someone do for you, or that you could delegate or leverage, which would be in Q3, and eliminating all the Q4 things, man, as much as you can, or limiting them down to like an hour a day, because still that adds up a ton, right? So here's my process for creating an action plan. This is my Sunday planning method that I work off of throughout the entire week. I do this every Sunday. I schedule an hour out of my day on Sunday to write this down. So I write down everything that comes to my mind. It's just a complete data dump, okay? Anything, both work and personal, I get out of my system, okay? So oftentimes it actually looks a lot longer than this, but just I get it all out on the page, which I think is important. And then I go into the second step, which is to prioritize. And so I will go back through, and I'm going to put, I have a little tiny column here on either side that I will place down Q1, Q2, Q3, or Q4. I'm pretty good about this now, so I don't even typically write down the Q4 stuff, but certainly it shows up as you well. And I, sit down on the toilet and I just start looking at social media, right? But I stay there too long. I should be quicker, right? We can always improve. But this is where I'll have my list, and then I'll actually put in my Q1s and my Q2s in the prioritized column, right? And then I will actually highlight the Q1 area just to bring my eyes to, like, this is the area of the zone that I need to make sure I'm spending all my time in. Otherwise, as well as I do, if you don't schedule these things in, like, your day will completely run away from you, right? So I'll take my 90-day goal that I had from my vision kind of process, right? And I'll stick this in here and I'll figure out, like, what is it that I ultimately want, just to make sure, double check, because there's a lot of repetition in my process to keep asking myself, is this what I really want? Are you sure this is what you really want? To see that there's congruency there, right? And then why do you want it? Why is the 90-day program or outcome really a necessity? How am I going to actually do it? So I start flushing out the things that I got to do, because a lot of times the things that I write down initially on this piece of paper are like the urgent and important things, right? But then when I get clear about what it is that I must get done, there's other things that flush out of me that I haven't even thought of. Like, oh crap, you know what? I got to update the webinar slide deck. So I got to get all these things done. And then the when, you want to put milestone dates in there. Okay. And then I have several buddies actually that hold me accountable with various things. But who will hold you accountable? What will be the consequence on it if you don't accomplish it in 90 days? That's hugely powerful for leverage. Otherwise, if it's just you and you've allowed yourself to slip throughout the years, you might be like, whatever, right? You can't approach life that way, because life is, I feel like the older we all get, the faster it goes. So work smarter, not harder. Like, what are areas that you could leverage or delegate? Especially now, this is kind of nice with the coronavirus in the sense that it's pushed us to have to, like, think outside the box a little bit. So I use Instacart, or my buddy who delivers meals every Monday morning to me. I use the Handy app for cleaning my house at times. I use Upwork for outsourcing a ton of stuff that I don't have to actually do. Anything that's on the internet that I don't have to bring my gifts to, I will outsource to people. Like, I had 2 people that I hired just a couple weeks ago in Nigeria, and they did an amazing job. So many ideas out there, but it's good to be around good people who are pushing the limits like this, right? And reminding you of all that's possible. And then pillar 4, execute with simplicity. This is my daily process, okay? And this I've really honed down, so I've memorized this thing, so I don't have to look at this too often. But step 1, as it says there, is your vision and clarity, which I do on Sundays. I get clear about what it is that I'm doing for the week, okay? You can see where I'm going with this. Vision for your life, down to like 1-year outcomes, down to 90-day outcomes, down to weekly outcomes, down to your daily, right? And the second step here is to win the evening, and you do that by executing a healthy evening ritual. And a lot of times that will provoke, as I said, as a pro tip, not a huge aha moment, but quality sleep tonight equals quality day tomorrow. And if I'm sleepy or sleep deprived, man, like, my day struggles by far. Every once in a while, if I'm dating someone new, right, and you spend a couple of nights like late in a row, you're just taxed. Like, I can't even begin to function, and that's bad news, right? So the associations to bad quality sleep obviously look like things like this, where 23.2% of people say they have a harder time concentrating when they're tired, or they have forgetfulness, they're neglecting hobbies, they neglect their financial affairs, they have issues driving, issues working. Like, clearly, we all know how important sleep is, but we don't actually prioritize it. It's like, I know what I need to do, but I don't do what I know. It's because we're addicted to certain behaviors, because we're not going to sleep, because we're watching Netflix, because we don't have a plan for the day, because we don't even know which direction we're going. You get my drift? So step 2 here, time audit. This is something I think is a game changer for me, game changer for a lot of my clients. Some of you guys are on here. What's up? That time audit, listing out activities, thoughts, and behaviors that rob you of your time. And so I actually use a Google Sheet, which I can get you guys if you're interested in. But I will look and just take every half an hour, and I'll do it for like a day or two. I did it to where I noticed that I was spending over an hour every single day cooking meals. Because I work from home, obviously. I've worked from home for the last 10 years. But like, when you add that up and I look at it at a monthly basis, which this thing summarizes how much time I'm spending in each of the four quadrants, it's pretty eye-opening to see where I was wasting my time and where I need to make tweaks. Okay. I see you guys sending some messages in or some questions. I'll definitely hit them up here in just a second. Here's a challenge for you guys. If this is all you took from this whole webinar, I challenge you to move your phone and your charger somewhere else. If you haven't already done this before, somewhere else across the room or in your bathroom or in the hallway. This little tip here saves me so much, because one of my morning ritual tasks, the very first thing, is get up, no snooze. If I have this near my bed, I will snooze at least an hour, 2 hours, and then I wake up and then I'm shaming myself because I'm behind and the rest of the world's getting ahead. Like, I'm an achiever like that, right? And if you're anything like that, like, you just have to get to the habit of, literally getting up, turning off your phone, and then I kind of jump like straight into the shower, right? Wesley, you said you started this a couple weeks ago. It helps. It totally does. It totally does. It's a game changer. And it also keeps you from watching your phone, or it doesn't keep you, but it helps because I put it down and I put my phone across the room, when I go to bed, and then I actually get in bed and I'll read. Okay. A lot better than watching Netflix. So remove all unproductive apps from your phone, from your devices. That was hard for me, but it's totally helped. I don't put any streaming stuff on my phone. All that stuff, games, things like that, I literally get them off. Clearly I have certain things like Instagram and Facebook for business and stuff like that, but I really don't like being on it that much. The big thing that I would say too, that I do that really, really helps improve my productivity the next day, is to schedule the one thing that I have to do tomorrow. If I had to literally choose one thing, a lot of times I'll think about this when I'm flying, like in the afternoon, and I only have a couple hours before I leave for the airport. I'll think of like, okay, what do I have to do tomorrow? I have to do this one thing, okay? And so you want to look at, it's probably somewhere on your list. It's a Q1 or Q2 thing that needs to be done tomorrow. If that's all you got done, hugely important, get that done and then schedule it into your calendar, because it does not become real until your must action item is on your calendar, okay? So I time block just like this, a little screenshot of my phone. I time block it and I hold myself extremely accountable, okay? How you own your morning, okay, is essential to just being super productive. I use a healthy morning ritual that I have an app for, so I can literally check things off. And this is, my list. I get up, no snooze. I have no social media. I take a piss, turn on some music. I get in the shower. I get out. I put my Apple Watch on, brush my teeth, make my bed, get some water, do some push-ups, sit-ups, and it keeps going from there, okay? It's extremely important that has a huge way of setting the tone for the day. I cannot speak highly enough of it enough. But truly, I will never get to my morning ritual all that much if I don't ultimately get to bed early enough, okay? So I have to set a predestined time of when I'm going to bed. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. So pillar number 4, of course, here is to execute with simplicity. In that, if you, like as Mark Twain says, if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning, so you're not constantly thinking like, oh God, I have to do this later on today. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the biggest one first. Get the biggest task and the most kind of maybe overwhelming or scariest thing off your list. Russ, I see you just mentioned take a piss. That's a given. It is, but why I put those things down there? Because I'm going to do it anyways, but at least it just feels good to be checking shit off, for me personally. That's the way that I like to roll. I'm already winning in the morning. It just helps that, like, all right, I'm committed to this list, and that gets my momentum going. Okay. I have to make things really, really simple to accomplish. Otherwise I will easily fall into overwhelm. And if I get into that spot, then I literally just want to piss away the day. Okay. Step 5 is just to create massive leverage. And ultimately I have to turn off my phone, and I put it on airplane mode when I go into the zone, right? Or turn things on do not disturb like they are right now. And then I use another app for Pomodoro sessions. Pomodoro focused technique is really important because the studies show, and I won't go into this to very much because I know our time is limited, that we have limited, attention spans. And so we're really, really good at 25 minutes, but beyond that, if we get distracted, it takes a lot of time for us to come back to being focused. but I turn all things off and then I use an app and I'm on for 25 minutes and I have nothing else that I'm focusing on except this one thing, right? The one thing that I keep saying. And then the app tells me, ding, you got 5 minutes break. I'll take a leak. I'll grab some water. I'll jump on my little trampoline, maybe return a few text messages, turn my phone back on airplane mode, and I'm back into another session, another round. Okay. And then I also have this little reminder that I have up on my, what do you call it? My mirror in my bathroom, just to remind me of the things of like, just make sure I'm staying honest and making sure I'm working through the 5 steps of winning my day. Okay. So as Pablo Picasso says, that our goals can only be reached through a vehicle of a plan in which we must fervently believe and upon which we must vigorously act. And there is no other route to success. Like my buddies have said over the years, like I started lifting more heavily as like a 25-year-old. I could not put on weight for the best of me. Like I was a soccer player. I played a lot of other sports. I was always kind of like that skinny, scrawny kid. And I finally really dove into lifting when I was 25 years old. And now 15 years later, my buddy's like, dude, how do you stay so fit? Or how do you like put on the mass? I'm like, honestly, man, it's like, yeah, it's nutrition. It's not like just one workout exercise machine. It's the accumulation of consistently working out almost every single day for 15 years. Like, I don't know how else to tell you, but it's just consistency. So you know it, I know it. Our lives are going to be the ultimate like end result of our consistent habits. And they come down to our daily, actions. But you're not going to have any drive to do those daily actions if you're not actually clear about where you're going. That's why this all fits in really well with the vision, right? So, like I said, consistency is the only way to build a great life. How do you go from a place where you are constantly beating yourself up and berating yourself for being a waste of space, a waste of potential? And how do you actually get to, not only achieving things like the science of achievement, like I said, but having that level of fulfillment that comes with a sense of like humility, but like self-pride that like, yeah, I'm proud of what I'm building. I'm building my kingdom and I'm really proud of my output. Otherwise, as well as I do, when you're in that place of underperforming and you're a lot better than you are, man, that's like, to me, that's probably one of the worst feelings as a guy, at least speaking for myself, right? So at this point, you ultimately have 2 questions. You can certainly do this all on your own. I've given you, this is like probably drinking from a fire hose. I fully get it. Because I've created my own process. You can come up with all yours and do all that, because I know we all have different ways of doing things. You can certainly come up with your own, or I can help you with a clear path. Okay. So I would love to invite you at this point to an exclusive online e-course, which is designed to give you all the tools, the resources, and education to envision, design, and implement your dream lifestyle. It's how I've created what I've created in my life and how I'm going to continue to level up. Because if there's one thing I am driven by, it's just I want to get to the end of my days, whenever it is, and be able to look back and be like, man, I left it all in the field. I gave it my all, and I'm proud of what I built, and let the rest of it kind of go from there. So this is all only for guys who need the accountability to schedule time to create a powerful vision. If you are really good at being self-disciplined and self-managed, then you can probably take this on your own. But if you need the accountability, it's important. This is for you. This is for guys who kind of want to shortcut the process of consolidating the years of my struggle into, a couple of days of success on your part. This is for guys who need someone who maybe, you have some questions throughout this whole process. You want to hit me up or hit some of the other guys in the community that have gone through this process. Totally cool. And then guys who are determined on using their time to accelerate towards their dreams versus wasting their time feeling shitty about themselves because they just saw someone who's outperforming them on social media. Okay. So here it is. It's the Win the Day e-course. It's $79 today. And it's going to be available May 1st. I just need to make a few other tweaks to it, but you literally get everything I just showed you. You get your create your vision, design your life kind of worksheet. That's a 5-page worksheet that'll take you through the whole process of creating very clear vision. And I think that's a problem for a lot of us. We think about, like, God, I have to create a vision. Like, it's so big, I don't even know where to begin, right? So when you chunk it down into categories of family and fitness and finances, it becomes very, very, very clear, okay? Then you're also going to get the weekly planning session, which is what I use every single week. And I just start checking things off as I get them done. And I'm very clear about why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's why I'm able to create what I'm creating in terms of men's courses, and I'm coaching and doing a podcast. I'm currently writing a book. Granted, I'm not married and I don't have kids. Totally get it. If you do, that's okay. You can't compare me to you. It's just you have to work with what you've got right now, right? You'll get the 5 steps to winning your day. I'll also give you the time audit spreadsheet, so you don't have to make that. You literally have all the formulas in place. You just start keeping track of what you're up to. And then I'll tell you exactly what apps I use that I mentioned in this, and all these other kind of time savers. Okay, so if you want in, just go to johnnyking.com/win. It's $79. I could seriously be charging $500 for this, $1,000 for this. I think the value is there because of the coronavirus and everything else. Because I'm kind of doing what I'm doing, I want to help you guys, you know. So if you can't afford $79, then it's almost like you have to get this, because we need to help you level up and start broadening your perspective. But if that's a challenge, hit me up. I can do some payment plans, things like that. Here's a bunch of testimonials, which I don't even need to go into. You guys know whether or not this is going to be of use to you or not. If you have your own process, totally get it. Totally cool. This is just the way that I do it, because I don't want too many more steps than I will ultimately get overwhelmed with. But here's various testimonials from clients off my website that I've worked with over the years. And I'd love to kind of open things up to Q&A. So if you have other questions, feel free to throw them into the chat box. Let me go back and kind of cruise through. Of course, we've been blowing up this chat box with a lot of yeses. Are these documents something you've made or something we can purchase somewhere? Good question, Lundell. I made them, and of course, you can purchase them. You got that figured out. How do you find somebody to hold you truly accountable, Lundell? I have 2 buddies that I met at a Tony Robbins event up in Whistler, Canada, 7 years ago. And I talk to them pretty much on a daily basis through WhatsApp. So this community of men, the guys that are literally on this webinar, who might be coming to a meeting of men, who are jumping into my Brotherhood of Men Facebook community group, like those are the guys. I'm your guy, whatever the case might be. If you're looking for accountability buddies, I have a buddy that hired me, and he wants a text or a call check-in that we've set up every single day throughout the week at 8 a.m. I call him on the second, and we talk really quick for a couple minutes just about what is his intentions for the day. But he needs that level of accountability to make sure that he follows through. And he knows I'm going to check in with him tomorrow morning. So that's something that he needs, you know. What else do we got here? Cooking used to take me a ton of time. I did the same type of audit. Love it, Corey. Wesley started this couple weeks. Yep. What is the name of the app? Musaf, it's in the course here. Mike, you mentioned the same thing. It's all in the course. Eat That Frog. Brian Tracy. Robert, you got it. What app? John, you asked the same thing. Will you be giving this webinar again? There are a few people I'd like to have listen to your message. Yes, I'm going to be. Life is an iterative process, is it not? So the guys that bought the program before, I've made improvements on this. That's the cool thing, is I'm constantly improving this as I'm going through it myself, because like, you know what, this doesn't make sense. And I'll update the trainings. I'll update the what do you call them? The assets, the pieces of paper. So the e-course ultimately is like this. It's a training where you're listening to me. It's you're just going through video modules ultimately, and I coach you through how to do every single process. So ultimately, you just have to fork up $79 and then just jump in, and it's going to guide you through video modules, you know. So any other questions? Is there a way to get a similar PowerPoint you used for us to look at again? I came in late and missed some slides. Omari, we can certainly touch base. I'll text you. We'll get that stuff. Thanks, John Paler. What's up, brother? Sean T, appreciate you guys. So if you don't have any other questions, so I'm a couple minutes over. Appreciate you guys. I hope you got some value out of this regardless. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate you guys all. And we will catch up with you guys soon. All right.